Oh
like
yeah,
at
because
home.
once Surge's mic leaves his house, it breaks.
Yeah.
Talking about
No, not that. The one in our in my
uh,
basement.
it was on Dylan's phone. I remember. Maybe it wasn't.
Bro,
I
the
don't
amount
remember.
of
No,
times
I
he's
remember.
managed to unlock my phone and put stuff on my Snapchat story should be studied in museums. You've
No.
done it like 6 times. I need to know how you're doing it. Like, it's going to happen again.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Back Pocket Podcast, Ep.19. Another NFL week down. As always, we have several topics for you guys today on this Monday night. You will all be seeing this on Tuesday night. Very excited to get to you. Great week of NFL. As always, I'm joined by my wonderful co-host. My name is Key McDermott. Charlie Nidell, how are you tonight?
I'm having a good night. It's been a good week. I watched some NFL yesterday. Maybe gonna watch some Bengals Jaguars now. It's been a good week.
Did you know this is the first time the Jaguars have been on Monday night since 2011, I think? Surge Kadali, in the midst of his finals, but he
Not
always
really.
Surge having another flu game. Not really, but
Really? No,
I'm trying to Dylan Shalom. Dylan, how are you?
I'm upset, I'm not going to lie. Because I wanted to record a podcast with some people at UMass about the college football conundrum, which was Florida State not making it out, and the flash drive didn't save it, so we spent about an hour doing nothing, and it makes me kind of upset. I still haven't gotten over it, but I'm here. Quick 2-podcast day for me. I'm really excited to get on.
The omission of Florida State is ridiculous.
Yeah, fully.
Okay.
It's wrong.
Here's-
It's just flat out wrong.
Fully agree.
I think in precedent, looking at, yes, they were undefeated. Yes, they beat good teams. They were going to get killed by any of those teams if they were to make it.
Irrelevant.
Here's
But,
what.
but it's not. But it's
relevant.
not irrelevant because we saw a championship game last year where
65
Georgia scored 65-7. No one liked that game. It makes the committee look bad. I'm sorry, Florida State. It sucked. I know Jordan Travis broke his leg, but at the end of the day, the best 4 teams need to make the playoffs, and the best 4 teams made the playoffs.
My question to you, Kian, is, and Serge, because I think you're going to disagree with this
Yep.
as well.
Mhm.
What is the point of playing the football games if the results don't matter? There was no team that beat Florida State. They, coming into the last week, were ranked ahead of Texas. They beat a better opponent than Texas beat, and they moved down because they didn't have enough style points. We're looking at what the committee wants in their brand of football. And personally, I think it's corruption because I think they wanted SEC and Big Ten because Washington's future Big Ten, Texas's future SEC. I think it's absolutely disgusting, personally. I've taken time to really go over it. I don't think it's fair. I think they've screwed over everyone at Florida State, and I think that there needs to be answers to it because they're pretty much saying, we don't care how good you are over the course of the season. If we don't want you in because of your brand of football, we're going to kick you out and get Alabama because those SEC numbers are coming to Alabama at ESPN. So I'm a bit of a tangent, but yeah.
I see your point,
but-
but I will say what I think is that Alabama, like Kian said, I think the best 4 teams made the playoff, and I think
Georgia's the best team. I still think Georgia's the second best team.
No, they're not.
Like,
But that's
I mean, it's hard to argue
irrelevant
because
Dylan, I want to, and Dylan and Charlie, I want to pose this question to you. Florida State didn't like the saying that what's the point of playing games if they don't matter is I think very invalid and doesn't make any sense because it did matter. They won the ACC. They would, Dylan, and I want you to try to answer this. Would Florida State with keep in mind, their 3rd string quarterback playing?
their second string would be back.
No, he won't. Their
he
second
would've,
string is
it
not
was
back.
a concussion.
Second string would have been back, but no, the point you're trying to make is fair, and I agree with you. I think they would have lost to Michigan or whoever they played.
But it's Dylan, it's not lost. It's first quarter, it's a blowout, and no one watches.
No, I disagree with that because their defense was good enough to beat a top 15 school on its own.
Yeah, but
yes,
let's be very honest here. Being ranked in college is great. All top 25. My school, University of Wisconsin, was ranked in the top 25 for a couple weeks. We are horrible. If you're not, I mean, realistically, if you're not top 7, after the top 7, top 10, it's a ginormous drop. Like let's be real here.
Yeah, okay.
The drop is dramatic.
No, but the point I'm trying to make though is like it's the purpose of college football. Is it for our entertainment? Yes. But it's also to reward the athletes for the season that they've completed throughout what's the point of having a 13-0 record, winning your conference if you're not going to be granted the opportunity to become a national champion? That's a Power 5 champion right there.
but here's what I'll say.
We're not talking about Liberty going undefeated. We're talking about a team that beat good teams. They beat the Jaden Daniels-led FSU. Like
LSU.
LSU.
But
LSU, yeah.
but I think going back on that point where you talked about it, even though the ACC is technically a Power 5 conference, no team in the ACC was like good. Like compared to the other 4 conferences, it was a very
The
it was-
ACC
it was.
is so
There was no-
wildly
I mean,
worse than every other
Louisville was
conference.
the second best
ACC
team.
actually
Louisville-
won head-to-head against the SEC this season, though.
Yes, but all of those okay, besides Florida State, which again were a good team with Jordan Travis, all those other games were against also SEC bottom feeders. And I agree that SEC is overrated. But I think the problem with leaving out Alabama is that Alabama, I think a lot of it is it the most deserving teams or is it the best teams? I think Florida State absolutely deserved to make the playoff. But the problem is the committee they literally officially take into account. It's not like the NFL where the teams with the best record make it. They take into account things like major injuries like Jordan Travis. And they don't want
Can we
a
take
situation
into account why is there a committee deciding who the best teams in college football are? Like, how does that make any
I'm
sense?
not
who
here to
else
argue
would
about whether or
decide
not
it?
that's well, I'm not
Like
Yeah,
what
I'll
else
argue
would
The
with
decide
records
this?
of the teams, maybe? Like,
I'm not
Dylan-
here to argue
Dylan,
whether or not that's right.
Okay,
or wrong.
so
But I'm
Liberty
saying
should
I'm
be in the
arguing
playoffs.
based on the standards that the
I mean,
that
I
the
don't
college
have a
football
problem with
committee
Liberty being
has
in the
it.
playoffs.
Yeah, you don't have a problem.
That
Like,
would no.
I mean, Dylan, it's.
I mean, obviously it should be expanded, but like,
I think
Okay, so
I
they
think
are
expanding
ultimately
it,
the
should.
answer is expansion. I think that's ultimately the answer to this. But we're looking at a college. I don't remember in the past. I mean, since I've really been watching college football, where we have 2 semifinal games that really it's up in the air. I think it's 50-50 in both of these games for who's going to win. I think 100% is 50-50.
If anything, that more so proves the point that Florida State should be in the playoffs because that means in years past they haven't cared so much about the games being 50-50.
But
And we're looking at this changed. What changed? What's different about that?
No,
I think
Charlie,
why
our
would they
complete point, we just said this, Florida State would be blown out, so it would not be 50-50, so that's not what we're saying.
But no. I know.
But
But the
you
fact
play the
that the 2 games are
games. It's
50-50, it's not like they're not playing.
What are you talking about?
Like, this is not
it's not
2
reality
50-50
TV.
games. If
Well,
we've
it is
never
actually with the
had,
committee.
if we've never had 2
That's what I will agree with you
50-50
on that.
games in recent history, is what you're saying. Why should that change now?
I
because
think
you're putting
no, and Charlie, I'm not saying that I think Florida State shouldn't have made it, but I'm saying they have finally now put in the 2 best teams that is going to produce the best output and is going to produce the actual best team, the best team in college football.
No, I can agree with. I can get behind that, but I would also make the argument that if we're playing by those rules, I think Georgia's a better team than Washington.
I agree.
Not.
I absolutely think
Mm.
they are.
But they just lost to Alabama. So it's
What I
if we're
will
going
say,
by
but I
results,
think,
it's
but I
also
think
better
the
than
difference. I think the difference with Georgia is that Georgia isn't a conference champion, and Alabama is,
Yeah,
which makes it a
exactly.
bit.
So is FSU.
No, but we're saying that Alabama deserves to get ranked over FSU, even though they have a loss because they're
But also-
conference
but
champion.
also I
Georgia
wanna-
doesn't deserve to it because they didn't even win their conference, so it's not.
Right, but
like,
I'm not arguing for Georgia to be in this. I'm arguing for FSU to be in this. This is also a conference champion.
But
I'm
also,
using-
No, I
think-
agree. But I think
the conference-
Alabama is also a conference champion. So you're leaving out a conference
the
champion.
conference
regardless, and
champion
the argument
argument
is that
is-
Alabama
yeah.
are a better team because they beat the number 1 team in the country, Georgia. They've beaten other good teams like they've beaten Ole Miss, who are top.
I also want to bring up the fact with Alabama is that they were 1 competent defensive play from being completely out of the picture. Like Auburn let that happen for, I can't tell you how that was. Like, I think I'm not going to over exaggerate here, but I think that might have been, actually, I might over exaggerate here. That might have been the worst Hail Mary defensive play I've ever seen in my life.
I don't know why you rushed 2 rushers in that situation.
It's insane to me. And then we're going off of, because if FSU went out there and they beat Louisville with a good offensive performance, they would have been in this college football playoff.
Yes.
But we're looking at the way they played against Louisville and saying they didn't have enough style points. They're not going to attract an audience. But when you look back at Alabama's performance against Auburn, it's kind of the same thing. We're only looking at this week.
Alabama
difference- what I
played
will
an
say is the
awful game
difference-
against Auburn.
But what I will say, the difference between that is that mainly with FSU, they've had a number of chances since Jordan Travis got injured. They've had many chances to impress. In all of those games, they've been very disappointing. Where they played against Florida, they weren't great. Also, like similar to Alabama, Auburn in the national championship, they basically won. I mean, honestly, Louisville. I don't know if you watched that game, but there was a
did.
call in the 4th quarter where They had a very good chance of getting a touchdown there, but it was called incomplete on the play. I think that was a touchdown. So they were one kind of.
No, I know what play you're talking about. It was questionable. I think it was
a
incomplete.
touchdown.
I think
he
it was
completed
incomplete,
the
but
process.
it could go either way.
But they're one
Okay, wait.
50-50 call away from losing that game. So they have
But they would have
games.
still beat Louisville. I still think they would have beat Louisville.
Okay,
Well,
but that's not totally like. So I think what we're discovering as we keep talking is that this is not arguing who we think should be in. It's what we think the method for deciding who should be in is.
Well, I'm
it's-
arguing what the
it's
method for
the
deciding based on
difference-
what the
it's
method
the
of
difference
deciding
between
is.
should it be the
Sorry.
best 4 teams in the country, or should
Which
it be the
is-
4 teams who deserve the spot the most?
Well, here's what I'm
because
arguing. I'm
it's
arguing.
undeniable that Florida State deserves it as a 12-0 team,
Yes, 13-0.
13-0 team, but it's also undeniable that without Jordan Travis, they're not one of the best 4 teams in the
Well,
country.
here's what I'm arguing. I'm arguing that the standard is the 4 best teams. So I'm arguing that based off the standard, whether you like it or not,
Yeah.
the committee got it right.
I mean, Charlie, are you going to
But
tell me that
is
it
and
shouldn't
now
be
whether
the
or
best
not,
4 teams?
but whether or not you're arguing if
I don't know.
Florida, yeah, go ahead.
I don't know what it should be because
Yeah,
the NFL playoffs isn't the best 14 teams. The NBA playoffs isn't the best. I don't even know how many teams they have in the playoffs anymore.
I
think
will
it's
say-
16 or 17.
Although college
Yeah.
sports is usually
Yeah.
kind of
Charlie, I will
the same thing with
yeah.
college basketball. This is kind of like a typical thing.
I
that
will
they do.
say, yeah, Charlie, I feel like generally speaking in the end, I can't really think about in the past years watching NFL if there's been a team that's missed the playoffs that you're like, oh, they deserve to be in. You know what I mean? Like I feel like the
Steelers,
NFL,
I don't know if you guys remember the Steelers 2018, 2019.
Yeah, maybe, but I
They
feel
were
Here's the thing,
great.
though. In the NFL, we're able to see a good defensive
Hey.
performance and say, okay, this defense is elite. FSU had an elite defense throughout the entire year, and nobody seems to care.
I think at the end of the day,
I think they do care. I think it's more the problem that they don't have nearly the offensive firepower to overcome any of Alabama's Washington. They honestly could,
But it's their
but
defense that
Michigan.
overcomes that, right?
Yeah,
We're
no,
but they
looking-
also had,
when we look at-
had an elite offense prior to Travis's injury, and
But
then you
all
saw
of
that
this is
completely go down
NFL.
the drain.
But the
what
thing
Dylan
is,
is
all of
saying-
this is
go ahead.
hearsay. We don't know what would have happened if they played each other because they're not giving it the opportunity to.
But-
Like
but
we can
no,
make
but
the
that's-
assumption.
But you can say the same.
assumption,
But you can say the same thing about 2014, where it was between Ohio State, TCU, and TCU. They let in Ohio State, and Ohio State won the national championship. Now, technically, TCU could have made the playoff too.
And
But
I actually-
wait, let me finish.
I'm gonna
Wait,
agree.
let me finish. But what I'm gonna say about that is that even though you didn't let them in, you could have said, "Oh, what would have happened?" But at the end of the day, their decision is to elect the 4 best teams in college football. And true, we'll never know now. And I really do feel bad for FSU and especially the players because they do deserve to be in the playoff based on their performance. But an unfortunate injury, and we've seen what happened the last few weeks without their star quarterback. I feel
They
like
win 2 football games.
They win 2 games.
Yes,
their defense
against
steps up.
Florida and
Dylan, you've been an
Louisville.
analyst
We saw
for a long time.
Alabama.
You know,
We've seen
winning doesn't mean good,
Bama.
good performance.
We've seen
But winning is the only thing that matters at the end of
Yeah,
the day.
but
Not
I
in college
agree. But that
football.
does
In college football style.
Right, but
whether
you don't
you
have
like
to
it or
why
not
is the
in
standard
college-
for-
in the national championship to win it.
The standard of
No, I'm
college
talking
football.
about to get into the playoff. To get
But
into the
that's
playoff, you
stupid.
have. But that's how it works.
But if
that's
but
just
if
that's
always
stupid.
how
And
college
that's the
football
whole
is.
point I'm trying to
game
make.
you can play badly,
Since
then you could play badly to win 2 more games in the college football playoffs.
wait, sorry,
That's-
say that again. I
don't-
didn't hear what you said. Say that again.
If you could go, Alabama could go out there against, they could go beat Michigan and they could go beat whoever they play in the final with 2 bad performances. Correct?
That's not going to happen.
It can.
But they could. It's
They
very,
could.
it's,
They
a-
could.
it's just a totally possible situation.
Although it would
just could
also
happen.
it's harder to say a bad performance because both the teams they're playing are elite.
Yeah,
Right,
that's-
but it'll be it's bad, but it's good enough to win the game because we see that happen in the playoffs all the time. It's just something that happens in a lot of games.
I don't think
really,
that's
why
happening.
can't
I don't think that
Florida State-
ever happens in college football. When has a team ever played
No, I
very
just
badly
mean-
and not?
NFL
But I feel like
playoffs,
very
college
badly
football
means
playoffs,
playing down to
I-
the competition.
I
think
don't-
it's
I don't think
possible
we
to play
should
down
be-
the competition in the playoff because these are 4.
I don't
elite
think we should be
programs.
comparing
But it's not
NFL and
playing
college
down to
football. I
competition
think
because
they're
Florida
very
State
different.
just went out and beat the number 14 ranked team in the country.
Yes, but we saw during that game that they could have easily ran away with that game because Louisville's offense was completely useless.
Okay,
And again, that's
I
also
will-
a testament to their defense. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. But we saw that they had a great defense and a great offense, but that half of their identity was lost when Jordan Travis went down. And I feel like that's
Listen.
inarguable.
So listen, I agree. I agree with you, Surge, and Yuki, and I'm sure you have the same opinion, Charlie, that this is the most entertaining version of the college football playoffs. What they put together is going to be super, super fun to watch.
Mhm.
But that's not the point of sport. The point of sport is to reward the best team. And
Whether you
even
like
though-
it or not, that's the point of college sport. The
But
point
Dylan,
is
they're
they're
not the best team.
selecting what they think are the best 4 teams, not saying, okay, based on merit alone. And Florida State
No,
on
but
merit
there's-
should be in the playoff, but they're saying, what do we think are the 4 best teams that will provide the best matchups? That's what they're deciding to do.
but
I'm
there's
not.
no
I'm not. Oh, wait. Let me.
there's
wait,
no
I'm-
precedent.
No, wait,
for that
wait.
Surge, you've
decision.
been
But I'm
Surge, you've been
saying-
the only one speaking. So let's.
Okay.
Okay, here's what I want to say, and this is more to the point of comparing the NFL and college football. I think it's very different. I don't really think these are two comparative things. NFL, vastly more teams make the playoffs, so you don't really ever see teams snubbed of making the playoffs.
I think expansion is necessary.
and
what I'd
that's
say.
it is happening. So this,
Mhm.
unfortunately for Florida State, they were caught in a year where there are still 4 teams making the playoffs. Next year, if this were to happen again, Florida would be in the playoffs, and it's just unfortunate. I think at the end of the day, that's what we can do. We can cry about it, we can boo-hoo it. They are not one of the best 4 teams. Do I think that the merit and all of that, and yes, they should be in it, and the players deserve it? Yes, I agree, and I think it sucks, and I think it's part of sport. But to the point that, and we're just going in circles here, but to the point that we've said, they are the best 4 teams in college football are in the playoffs. These will produce the best 3 games. And unfortunately for Florida State, their quarterback got a bad injury. And it's just, they just will not have the offensive firepower to stand up to any of these defenses. And look, they won the ACC, undefeated season. At the end of the day, if you're, and none of the Florida State players will admit it because they're on the team and they think that they're great, and obviously, but at the end of the day, that's as good as it was going to get, even if they were in the playoffs. They were not winning a game. They were not winning the national championship. They were
Not
going
true.
to get blown out.
You don't
No,
know.
we-
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
not-
we don't
know
yeah,
that.
Here's,
we
here's
don't
what I
know,
will
but,
say.
like,
I
let's
will.
be-
I actually agree with you guys that we don't know 100% that it would have happened, but it's what we think would have happened. Again, that's the way it goes in college
Listen, I
football.
know
It's what
this
you
is-
think
I know
will
you-
happen,
we're
and
running
it's
through-
more likely that Florida State would get blown out, or
We're
not
running
that
through
provide
this
a matchup
the
than
same way,
Alabama.
so I'm not going to prolong it. I'm just going to put out there the question: how would you have it work? Because clearly this is not the right way, and
the best
expansion
teams.
is
I would have it how it is exactly right now.
that's insane.
No, it's not. It's the best
I think
4
that's
teams.
insane. I
don't
think
think it
that's
is.
insane though,
I don't think it's insane because it's the
because
best
you're
4
not
teams.
you're not rewarding the teams for winning games. You're rewarding the teams for playing the way the committee wants them to play.
But that's always
It's
been the
not.
case, even when you
But
go back
I don't
to
know why you're
UCF,
saying win it.
it's
or
always
UCF, which were undefeated 2 years in a row and they never made the playoff. It's
Who-
always
who?
been a thing. UCF.
But UCF played in. They were G5. They weren't even Power 5.
Yes, but what I'm saying also is that the ACC was particularly weak this year.
But the point I'm trying to make, though, is there was nothing Florida State could have possibly done in order to make the college football playoff. So what's the point of them even playing?
Well, then and that's what I'm saying. Again, what about Group of 5 teams then? What are you saying? Because then
You're
what's
saying
the
that
point
they
of them
should be
playing?
playing.
I'm saying that, expansion is the answer. And
That's what I'm saying
every
also, to
con-
give Group of 5 teams a chance also.
Yeah,
which
every
I think,
co- I
I think
think-
always expansion was always necessary because
That's what I'm saying. But even when expansion happens next year, we're looking at 6 Big Ten, 6 SEC teams possibly.
I think Group of 5. I think every conference has one spot,
don't think
automatic
so.
one
I
spot.
don't
No,
think
that's
so.
how it works.
That is how it works.
Every conference has
Okay.
one
Because
automatic.
Tulane
spot.
would
And
have
then
been
I
in it
think
this year.
Yeah,
They're
every
AAC.
power. Well, now it's
Miami
power
of
4 because
Ohio
the
would have
pack.
been in it this year.
So the
Winner
based
of
on
the
the
MAC.
Yeah, Liberty would have been in it.
no, only one. I don't think
Liberty
it
would
was
have made it
two.
over Miami of Ohio.
No, Miami of Ohio is the MAC. Liberty's Conference USA.
Oh yeah. Well, all right. Well, let's move on. We've discussed a lot. I agree. And again, I think we all have mutual agreements. Obviously, let us know what you guys think down below. But it has caused a huge argument. But let's move on to the NFL. What we all have wanted to discuss. And once again, like we said last week, as someone who is in Wisconsin, I'm around a lot of Green Bay fans. I have been berated at the dining hall today by people saying, "I told you so," that Jordan Love is a great quarterback. I was mid-bite into my eggs, and one of my friends, Connor, comes up to me and he yelled at me quite loudly, saying, "I told you that this was going to happen. I told you that Jordan Love would beat the Chiefs." And what a game by Jordan Love. What a game by the Packers. And I think we actually set it up really well last episode. We talked a lot about yeah, good receiving core, but can they really do it? Jordan Love looks good. Can he be consistent? I want to say this. You get Aaron Jones back. Christian Watson plays how he did. Jaden Reed plays how he did. Romeo Dobbs. This can be an elite
Dontavian
receiving
Wicks.
core. This can be an elite receiving core. This can be an elite quarterback in Jordan Love, and you can have an elite backfield with the rotation of Dylan and Aaron Jones. I think they're missing a tackle because of Bakhtiari. I think they're missing a secondary piece or two. I think their front seven is good, but I think in the next 1-2 years, if this continues, I think the Packers will be back in contention. Jordan Love looks like Aaron Rodgers. Jordan Love looks, I mean, he looks like a younger, more mobile Aaron Rodgers. He played fantastically. He was making smart decisions. And it's really a Packers team that I think 100%, I'm convinced now they will be a playoff team. I think they can win a playoff game. I think they can be a dark horse team to make it pretty far. I do think this is a knock on the Chiefs as well. I mean, really, we've been talking about it throughout the year. Their receiving core is just nowhere close to good enough. I don't think that they could be a lose in the first round.
I think they're a wild card exit.
Yeah,
I really think they're a wild card
I think they
exit,
could be a wild card exit.
I've
I think
been questioning Jordan Love from and last episode I was
last week.
and he
We still are.
No, I'm very convinced after watching that performance yesterday though. I thought the way that he was able to carry himself in a very difficult environment against one of the best defenses in football, that was a signature win that he needed for me to really, really consider him as one of the better quarterbacks in the league. He did that. I'm very impressed, and I agree with you. I think the Packers are something to really watch out for because they've got a good defense. It's been good all season, and now the offense is really starting to come together. I think this is a team that can honestly even contend for the division.
Yeah, I think this is like kind of, in my opinion, a tale of two young cores. So I think we saw early in the season with the Packers, the storyline was, is Matt LaFleur the answer? Because is he still the head coach for the Packers next year? Because it seemed like nothing was working. Players were running the wrong routes. Is coaching really at the same level now that Aaron Rodgers is gone? And what we've seen in the past few weeks is that finally everyone is starting to grow up. We're seeing the young receivers like Watson, who unfortunately got injured. I don't know how serious it is, but it looked like he aggravated a hamstring injury, but he's been coming together the last few weeks. Dobbs has been coming together. Reed, he's been very good. Wicks, another really young guy that I like. Even Malik Heath. They've got a bunch of young guys who now are really starting to kind of figure out the offense. And now we have a quarterback like Jordan Love who's getting more and more comfortable every week. Seems to have less and less of those kind of boneheaded mistakes or just missed throws. And he seems to be very kind of accurate, calm, composed. The offensive line also doing their job very, very well. It just seems like an offense now that just is in first gear. They're clicking. There's not in first gear. I don't know really how cars work, but they're in like the good gear. But they're really in a great spot right now where they look like a top 10 offense like they did under with Aaron Rodgers. And I think the defense, like you said, has been good, but I don't, even though they allowed under 20 points to the Chiefs, I don't even think that is a compliment to the defense because the offense was able to control time of possession all game. Like I think there was only like 2 full drives that the Chiefs had in the first half. It was that good from the Packers. So I think signature win. They looked like they definitely look like a playoff team. They're definitely going to be a playoff team barring any catastrophic injuries because that schedule to end the year is light.
Look, I wish I could pull up and remember exactly what we said about it last week. All I do remember is that I was on the side of Jordan Love actually looks really good this year.
Me too.
I don't really care.
Wow.
But I know Jordan Love, I said it last week, he's looked better and better as time has gone on. He's like just really settling into this. And I think we had this discussion because you were saying like he should have already said, I don't remember who was saying it. I think it was you, Kean, who was saying he should have already settled in. This is his 4th season in the NFL.
That was me.
Dylan.
I was on the fence.
I think this is a quarterback who and we said it last week, playing in games is so different than sitting on the bench and playing and watching these games unfold because we're just seeing a totally different quarterback at the helm for the Packers this year. I think Jordan Love looks better than Aaron Rodgers did last year. Rodgers was not very good last year. And he's taking this team to, I would bet money that this team is going to the playoffs this year because this is a weak NFC record-wise. And we're looking at, wild card spots should be relatively easy to come by for Green Bay. And, they're only 3 games off the division lead, and I think they still have 2 matchups with the Lions left. I believe, but I could be wrong. So
they only have one.
Oh
left.
With the Lions?
With the, they already played the
No,
Lions
they're
both
done. They're
times.
done with the Lions because they got blown out in Green Bay, and then
They did win one though.
dominated them in Thanksgiving.
But I think this is a team that, maybe can't compete for the division, but a 5 seed, a 6 seed is very realistic for this team. And I think that is very likely at this point. The way the Packers played last night, I think we watched the Broncos beat the Chiefs. We watched the Chiefs or the Jets almost beat the Chiefs. And we saw, those were 2 games that the Chiefs played really poorly and their opponents didn't really play much better. But this was a game where the Packers just played really, really well. I think maybe for the first time this season, the Chiefs lost to an opponent who was clearly better than them. Maybe the Lions in week 1, but that was, again, people chalk it up to Travis Kelce injury, drops, whatever. The Packers were clearly better than the Chiefs last night. And whether you want to, say that the refs missed a pass interference call on that last drive of the game, which they did, but they also called one a couple plays earlier. It's that game was not one that we can chalk up to the refs being bad. This is the Packers beat the Chiefs, for me, convincingly enough.
Oh yeah. I think, funny enough, I actually think this Packers offense, the way they were scheming plays, looked very similar to a Kansas City kind of style of play. I think you kind of look at those trick plays, the shovels they were throwing inside, there were a lot of play action, kind of getting Jordan Love outside the pocket. Yeah, I mean, again, and just to touch on the receiving core also. I mean, look, great. Christian Watson, once again, can be that alpha receiver, I think 100%, if he stays healthy. You guys know, and I want to give myself credit because I feel like I did very well with the receiving rankings. I love Jaden Reed coming out of the draft. He's been fantastic. Romeo Dobbs with that huge touch, not huge touch, excuse me. This is not soccer, with that huge catch, contested. I think it was in the 3rd quarter, but it was a receiving core that looked very, very good. So I think it would just be fantastic if that receiving core can stay healthy, and if Jordan Love kind of keeps it up, because I think this was a team that looked very, very brand new and very, very young and electric, and a team that can look to put up a ton of points.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think they looked young and electric, kind of in the good and the bad way to start the season. Well, not electric. They just looked young in the bad way, where they kind of looked like, again, a lot of mental mistakes, a lot of just kind of unforced errors, drops, just not knowing where to be, including the quarterback. And now the second half, we're seeing kind of the explosiveness, the potential that this offense really had, and it's really all coming to fruition. Meanwhile, in Kansas City, you're seeing, does Mahomes really trust anyone? And that's not even young players too, because we've seen like MVS. I mean, that was PI towards the end of the game, but the Chiefs have gotten enough calls in their favor. I feel like not even on that drive they literally did with the late hit out of bounds, which wasn't really. But yeah, you're seeing guys like Kansas City where Sky Moore really hasn't been a good option for Kansas City. Rashee Rice he's been good, I think, actually, but does Mahomes really trust him to be that alpha receiver? Marquez Valdes-Scantling also hasn't been that great either. It's just very, like, I don't know who really you can trust, especially considering Kelce. I mean, Kelce actually was good this week, but he's been also weirdly inconsistent. So it's definitely looking like this defense is going to have to kind of, I mean, they really didn't play that well this week, but they're going to have to play like they have most of the season, where they have been a top 5 defense, or else Kansas City are definitely not getting back to the Super Bowl.
What's very interesting to me is how important the loss of a guy like Juju Smith-Schuster has been for this.
That's what I was saying. That's what I was saying towards the start of the season.
He's actually terrible, but like they just need someone that's like competitive, I guess.
Yeah. So, Suraj, you said that at the start of this season, and I just totally disagreed with you because, as you said, Dylan, Juju Smith-Schuster is not a good receiver. So I don't think the loss of Juju was hurting them. It's Juju is sort of just the one who's taking the, I'm not gonna say blame, but it's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. Juju is the difference between the receiving core that last year and this year, but I don't actually think that it's Juju that was good last year. This is not they were just all better last year, and they've all gotten worse this year, but Juju left, so we're looking at it saying Juju was the difference.
I can get behind that. Yeah, but Juju was also an 1,000-yard receiver last year.
Yeah,
I just said Juju way too many times.
Yeah, I think the thing is that I think also Juju himself, which and we keep saying it, has also regressed with the Patriots, and definitely is a difference going from Patrick Mahomes to Mac Jones and Bailey Zapp. And I think he was at least someone who was relatively sure-handed, someone who was an okay route runner, someone who was like significantly more trustworthy than I think any of these guys on the offense are right now. So I think yeah, Kansas City just seemed to be, and also I think Kelsey not being as good as he was last year in particular is another thing that's really hurting because I think
Do we have to start looking at Kansas City's wide receiver drafting very critically? Because now I don't have a problem with Rashee Rice. I think he's fine, but I don't see him ever rising to the value of a number one receiver for this team.
Agreed.
Sky Moore,
yeah,
bust.
Mhm.
Miko
They
Hardman.
could
bust.
use
There's
a
like
receiver in this year's draft, and I
they
think
keep trying
as
to
we're
they
find the
gotta
next
take one.
Tyreek.
They
you know, I
gotta take
think
a
as we're
receiver.
talking
They
right
keep trying to take the
now,
next Tyreek though.
but I think as we're talking right now, they're gonna end up with a relatively decent draft pick as opposed to years past where they've been 31,
Uh,
32, maybe 29. They could end up with something like 24 or 25 this year, which is where we saw a lot of receivers go last year. They could end up with a better receiver than they have in the years past.
I
But
still
I
think
think
we're
that
counting out Casey a bit too easily.
no,
They're still
no,
eight
they're
and
bad.
four.
They're
They
bad.
still have a great defense.
No,
They
but
still
I'm
have the
just
best
saying it's a
quarterback
very
in the
real
league.
possibility that they end up with a pick that's better.
I say they still go to
If
the
this is a
AFC
wild card
Championship and
exit,
they'll
which
lose there.
it's the most likely year out of the last 5 that
Oh
they're
yeah,
not going to the
yeah,
championship
yeah,
game.
yeah, for sure.
And so that means it's the most likely that they end up with somewhere between 20 and 25. And that's a really good receiver spot. That's a great receiver spot.
I know. I see your point. I just
But
still
I
think
think the problem is they keep trying to draft for the mold instead of the player. They tried to get Sky Moore to be the next Tyreek Hill. No.
passing on Pickens was a
Yep,
huge
they tried to
mistake
get
there.
Miko Hardman to be the next Tyreek Hill. Nope. And now
Right,
Rashi
but
Rice.
now
who I
they may
think-
fix that.
No,
I
I
don't think
know.
Rashee Rice is a Tyreek Hill
No,
kind of
I
mold,
know.
though.
I think Rashi Rice is a little bit of a change in the mold. But remind me where they picked him. How early was he picked?
Not
Second
that
round, I
early.
want to say.
Second round, high second round though, right?
No, low second round.
I think it was a late second because I don't think they had
Late
an
second.
early second round
Yeah,
pick.
that's what I'm saying. Late second round. I mean, I just don't think that they drafted him with the intention of him being a wide receiver one.
Oh
That's-
yeah, no, for sure.
No,
I
and
think
I
they were
think-
hoping that Kadarius Toney would pick up that role, which I think also goes into the Tyreek mold, which was like, yeah, Kadarius Toney isn't a
Yeah.
great, definitely not a
Yeah,
receiver.
no, they're
one.
trying to find their Tyreek Hill, but I think I'm gonna say it. I think they should be drafting more for their Sammy Watkins, for their Juju Smith-Schuster. They should be
They miss
drafting
Sammy
for a
Watkins.
receiver who is just good enough.
I
They
do
should not
agree.
be drafting for Tyreek Hill because
shouldn't
you're
be-
not
they should
going
be
to
drafting
find
for-
Tyreek Hill.
They shouldn't be drafting for potential because this isn't a team that needs potential. It's a team that
They
needs
need a this
Yeah.
is a this is a win now team.
Mhm.
They will be win now as long as Patrick Mahomes is at the helm.
Mhm.
They need to draft receivers who are ready to win now, and not receivers who have a 1 in 1,000 shot of being as good as Tyreek Hill.
Although I think Rashee Rice was a good pick because he's someone who actually has had a positive impact on the team. But I think now next year they need to get kind of that guy that can be an alpha, even if that means being aggressive and trading up for a guy like I don't know, Keon Coleman or Roma Dunze or is it Roma? Yeah, it's Roma Dunze.
Yeah.
It's a Dunze. But yeah, I think they need to get that alpha this year, or they could go by trade. I think that's another real possible solution, or free agency. They have, I know Evans is a free agent, Higgins is a free agent, Michael Pittman's a free agent. So I think they gotta get someone there that can really kind of that Mahomes can trust in big situations, because this year where they've lost is in that big situations where Mahomes makes a throw, someone drops a pass, or no one's open. And I think that's really kind of the difference between the Chiefs this year and previous years.
Yeah, I mean,
Going on. Sorry, where are we? Excuse me. I had some
I
business.
think about
attend
to transition from the Chiefs to the Eagles.
Oh
Yeah.
wow! So we haven't even. Dare I transition now, or Dylan? Or do you have something to say? Dylan.
Do you want to keep talking about the Chiefs?
sorry, my audio just completely went out. It's been doing it a little bit throughout the video. It's just kind of cutting off. Usually it hasn't been a big deal. What did you say? Because I did.
I
not
was
hear
just
you.
saying, can we move on?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's move on to another very, very interesting topic of mine. And I think we will have another combating of opinions here. Obviously, San Francisco 49ers absolutely killed the Philadelphia Eagles in Philadelphia. As me and Charlie, I'm sure as Giants fans, that was lovely to watch, lovely to see. As
Mhm.
someone who's born in San Francisco, I can say I'm a Niners
Born in
fan.
San Francisco.
I was born in San Francisco.
Sadly, the Jets are no longer the only team to beat
Yeah.
the Eagles. It was a while last year.
Here's what I will say, and we don't talk about Stephen A. Smith a lot on here, and I don't know if you guys saw this, but Stephen A. Smith, and I just want to put this out there. You guys know I always put out a controversial point, and then we kind of go on from there. He said that this win from the Niners delegitimizes the Eagles as NFC champions. What
No,
do we
does that
think?
mean?
It's false.
What do we like? He I know that he's.
Oh, is he
worded
saying that
terribly.
because Purdy got
Because-
injured, then it doesn't?
Because they didn't have a quarterback.
And
mean-
also, I think he's saying that this year for the Eagles, this will, it deals like they have no chances here. And before you guys jump in, I just want to say this. And I'm not on either side here because I think this is obviously huge win for the Niners. This is a Niners team that is coming off a break. They are healthy, and it's an Eagles team that's coming off 2 huge games, an overtime win. Their defense played 93 snaps against Buffalo. So I just want to put that out there because I do think a fully healthy, rested Eagles defense, and not healthy, I'd say, but not like injured players, but fully rested. I do think it would have been a different game. Do I think the Niners would have lost? Not necessarily, but when you look at this game, how does this change your opinion on either the Niners or the Eagles? Because a lot of people are saying I don't think the Niners are going to lose another game this season, which I can completely get behind, but I'm kind of going on and on.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do we think about this game?
I
It
think
was-
Just to start, so your Stephen A. Smith quote, I think is like just totally wrong. It's totally like it's a bad opinion. It's like it's just false because I think we're also looking at, so first off, the Eagles killed the Niners in the NFC Championship game last year, and that was with no quarterback for the 49ers. Brock Purdy was injured early, then Josh Johnson gets injured. It was everything bad that could have happened for the 49ers happened.
Mhm.
This year, the Niners go out there and they kill the Eagles.
Mhm.
It's 2 different teams. Okay, the Eagles last year were better than they are this year. The Eagles this year are still the best team in the NFC, but they were, I think, better last year, and the Niners are, I think, better this year. So there's no way that you can delegitimize the Eagles NFC Championship from last year because that team, I think, so clearly deserved to be in the Super Bowl. They were the best team in the NFC.
Yeah.
And it's not, they got really lucky in the NFC Championship game because they might not have gone to the Super Bowl had Brock Purdy been healthy. But he wasn't, and the Eagles won. A lucky win is a lucky win. We talked about this earlier with college football. You can play badly, still win. A lucky win, it is what it is. They went to the Super Bowl, and there's just no way that you can take that away from them because they lost this year. So that's all I have to say about this. I think the Niners and Eagles are clearly the 2 best teams in the NFC right now. The Lions are good, but I think these are the 2 best teams.
Yeah.
As we've seen, the Niners, when they're on their game, can go ahead and beat what were they, 8-1, 9-1, 10-1. I mean, I don't even remember how many games we've played at this point, but this was easily just the best we've seen the Niners play in 2 years, and probably the worst we've seen the Eagles play in 2 years. So these are just games that happen.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I think with this performance kind of, to me, proves that the Niners are the team to beat in the NFC, and I know the Eagles have a better record.
I think in the NFL.
Oh yeah, in the NFL.
I think the Niners are the
I
best
think
team
I
in the
think
NFL.
either the Eagles or the Niners. But what I think maybe it's a bit reactionary, but at the same time, these are 2 teams that we didn't know which team is better, and one team went on the road and beat the other by 23. And I know obviously they had extra rest, but at the same time, the Niners, I think, have like the worst rest differential compared to their opponents in the league. I think it's like -20 less rest days than their opponents.
That's an insane stat to know.
Yeah, Jesus.
I
Sir,
would-
say
I
that
just
stat. Sir,
randomly-
say that stat again.
would
I randomly
never
saw
know
it. I randomly saw it
What
because
is it?
Niners fans were like saying, because an Eagles fan was saying, "Oh, we didn't get as much rest." The Niners fan was like, "Actually, we have the least rest differential in the league." They have.
That is who measures that?
I don't know. I just
You know-
randomly
you know
saw.
what,
I
that's not
randomly
like
saw
a
it and it's
hard
stuck.
measure. It's like they measure everything. You don't even know about it.
Yeah,
And then
Yeah.
when you're like, oh, it makes sense they measure that.
Like who's measuring like the wide receiver 6 stats on like the you know what I mean? Like is that like
Yeah.
electronic? Like probably, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Probably. I'd have to imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
But-
I want to know. Like I will never need to know the DVOA on Tim Boyle.
I still
But it's
don't
gonna-
even. I don't really understand DVOA or that stat at all. Like I know it's not really that like crazy of a stat. Like it's pretty commonly used, but I don't get it.
Yeah.
But yeah. But
Anyway, onwards.
anyway, going back to the Niners, I think they proved they're the team to beat in the NFC despite their inferior record, at least when healthy. I think take out Debo, take out McCaffrey. It's a totally different team that I would not be confident even close to the same way. By the way, Debo, someone who was really trashing on the Eagles all week long, especially James Bradbury. He talked the talk and he walked the walk.
He
3
did.
touchdowns in Philly, including you saw him waving to the Philly fans after the game. It really showed how important he is to that team, even if, again, numbers wise, it doesn't really show it all the time. But that Niners
This
team,
season,
when
especially,
healthy, it's
up
just
and down for him.
It's just an absolute well-oiled machine. I don't see any. I mean, the Eagles are a great team themselves, but they, like you said, Charlie, seem to have regressed, and the Niners seem to have gotten better. I think the Niners will end up having home field advantage for the playoffs, and I think they're going to beat the Eagles again in the NFC Championship.
I think it's hard to
Interesting.
say
I
that
mean-
they'll have home field advantage because
Well,
there
I
are
think they
there's
will
still
because I
two
think the
games
Eagles
back.
have 2 losses incoming against the Giants. The
Mhm.
Eagles and I don't know if the Niners have 2 losses.
Tommy
incoming.
What are you
Cutlets.
laughing at? Tommy DeVito has the same stats as Patrick Mahomes as the starting quarterback this year. So
Also, Tommy DeVito is undefeated as a starting quarterback.
Yeah.
I mean, are we
No,
talking
I'll
this year's
give the
Brock
props
where
Purdy?
they're due.
Are we
Tom
I've
talking
been
DeVito's
this-
saying
best
this,
quarterback in
and you guys didn't answer this, but someone needs to study the random every year. Some team gets it. The random quarterback that no one knows that steps in and like wins 3 games and has these insane stats, and like ESPN
happened
posts them
3
compared.
times.
You're having your Mike White era.
Yeah, we're having our Mike
basically.
White. We're having our Taylor Hine. Like it happens every
It's
year.
happened 3 times this year. If you want
I
to look
know.
at it, Tommy DeVito. You could see Aiden O'Connell. He won a few games. We can look at Tyson
Aiden O-
Bagent won a few games.
Yeah,
Tyson
Bagent.
Bagent was bad though. I think that's the difference. Like Bagent had one
Tommy
like
DeVito
good
has
game.
not been good. Like, let's
I
clarify.
mean, he had like a 3. I mean, he had like a
no,
pretty good
DeVito
game
played
against
one really, really
Last
good
year we
game,
had
but
Bailey
Tommy
Zappi
DeVito has
come
not
in and
been
win a few games. Like
good.
Well, I guess Purdy also last year, but like
Yeah,
that's like
Purdy,
kind of
exactly.
different because like he's still the starter and he's
Yeah.
like
Purdy's past that point now, though.
Mhm.
Like he's literally the leader in MVP. Like,
And if we're being,
odds right
I
now.
mean, but that's because he
What?
went out and went like 8-0 last year. So
Okay,
Yeah,
it's
I-
Purdy is not the MVP. Let's
Purdy
let's
can't be the MVP.
Purdy,
No, of course
Purdy's
not,
not the
but-
MVP. He's not even
Of course not, but-
he's not even the best contender to be MVP on his team.
McCaffrey should.
I would
be
put
in over
McCaffrey
him.
at
it's a quarterback award, so like
I know.
it's
It's
gonna
the
be
quarterback
given
with
to-
the best stats, but
Yeah.
Somebody in my hall just screamed incredibly loud. Did you guys hear that?
No.
no.
Yeah, it makes sense that you wouldn't hear that, but
Oh, I heard
It's
that.
I heard that.
Heard that. No way.
But yeah.
Uh,
Anyway, Brock Purdy's past the point of being like compared with these other backups that came in because he's playing legitimately well. But I haven't really given my take on the San Francisco and Philly. I still think Philly is the team to beat because they. Yeah, it's not those people, but Philly have the best record in the NFC. San Francisco went out and they gave them an absolute manhandling. But San Francisco lost 3 games this season. I know you can chalk it up to a bad stretch, but who knows that that's not going to come again. Those games were against Cleveland, Minnesota. The other one was who was the other game against? Because they lost
Cincy.
Cincinnati.
Cin-
That's
Mhm.
3 lost games, and there's no other than the injury. I guess the injury to Trent Williams and Debo. That's the reason that people are making for those losses.
I mean, those are 2 pretty big losses.
no, they're
That's what I'm saying.
big.
When healthy, like I'm not even close to confident in the team the same way if they lose a guy like Debo or McCaffrey or Trent Williams.
No,
I think-
that's a fair point. But I'm saying if those 2 losses are going to completely derail the team into a 3-game losing streak, I think it's reasonable to say that Philadelphia is still the team to beat. Because I think if they had an injury to an AJ Brown or they had an injury to Elaine Johnson, I don't think they would go and fall 3 straight.
Ooh, I actually think they would because we saw I think Phillies when they were at their worst was when they subbed out actually Lane Johnson, who was injured for something Driscoll, and he was not good at right tackle, and it really impacted the Eagles' offense in general. And I think losing a guy like AJ Brown would be massive because he's been, other than Tyreek, he's been the best receiver in the entire league. So I think,
Yeah.
No, I think, and for most teams, I think one injury has a huge, especially for the best teams, one injury really can completely change the complexion of an offense. And I think I think I'm basing it off of when both teams are healthy, and I think when both teams are healthy, I would pick San Francisco, especially
Yeah,
after
we
the
see it,
performance.
but we see it all the time. I totally agree with you, Serge. I think that one injury, as minor as it sounds, when you're just talking about it, like one injury on the offense, like some teams have 5, but one injury to a key player, like as you said, completely changes the complexion of an offense. We've seen it with Saquon Barkley in New York. We saw it with Deebo Samuel. We've seen it with that happens to me every time.
I don't know.
Like, I don't.
Charlie, it's because you count. You start with your thumb, so it gives you the thumbs up.
Yeah, no, it happened to someone else last time we were recording. I think it happened like
probably
Sir,
me.
Probably me.
We saw it with Christian McCaffrey in Carolina.
It's just because
We see
Zoom's
this-
agreeing with you.
I mean, Nick Chubb in Cleveland, their offense has looked completely different without him. This one injury changes so much depending on who that injury is. And I think with San Francisco, I was trying to argue the whole time, Deebo Samuel's injured. They don't have their full offense. And people were saying, well, then without their full offense, they're nothing, meaning Brock Purdy is nothing, meaning whatever is nothing. So I think that this is just, it's very, it says very pointedly that big injuries make much bigger impacts than you can yawn. It's okay.
My bad.
Big
Just can't help it.
injuries just make a lot more of an impact than they seem at face value. But
Yeah,
No,
I agree.
I agree.
I also think, but also, and before we move on to the next topic, I think when you look at the matching up of these teams, I think the Niners just match up very well against this Eagles team, especially when you look at their offense. I think the Eagles secondary, for how good it should be, isn't great. I think they're bottom
Yeah,
5.
I
Is
don't
that,
like
they
the
are
Eagles.
really bad.
yeah,
this
they're
year.
bottom 5. I mean, the matches up there, they're old. They're bottom 5. The matchup there is just better. And I think no matter how healthy, how much rest, I just think that Niners offense will always be better.
I think
That-
an even
Eagles
bigger
went out there.
I
problem
think
with
the more key thing for that is that I think that the offenses that match up best with the Eagles defense would be 49ers. The Dolphins offense would match up
Mhm.
great with the Eagles because
Well,
it's these
No,
offenses.
I disagree with that.
I
because-
think it's these offenses that move around these defensive
No.
linemen. They move around these linebackers like the 49ers do. They line up in so many different looks, and then they've got a quarterback who can find so many different options out of those looks.
I think in
and-
the passing game, I agree. But
We saw Jalen Carter. What was he crying on the sideline because he just couldn't touch anybody? It was just like
Dude, that was so funny.
Jalen Carter, who has been defensive rookie of the year, I think pretty undisputably, and
Witherspoon,
one of
but-
Witherspoon,
and one of the best defensive tackles in the game already was
Mhm.
crying on the sideline
that was so funny
because
Oh
the
my God.
49ers offense was just running circles around him. This
never-
is the
yeah.
kind of offense that I completely agree with you. This was the perfect matchup for the 49ers. And I think 7 times maybe out of 10, the Niners are running away with this game.
yeah,
I think what was even worse really for than you talked about their corners, but their coverage linebackers in terms of coverage was awful. Like I think Nicholas Morrow, he missed like so many tackles on Debo. I think he gave up like over like 160 yards and like
It's
like and like
but also
yards, like,
Deebo
given up.
Samuel is probably the hardest receiver in the NFL to tackle. So it's
Yeah,
like
no, that's true. But at the same time, like again, which speaks
Trying
to
to
how
think.
good of a
I think
matchup it
that's fair.
was.
speed
And I think that's
strength,
why
there's no
we
one who
saw
matches Deebo.
we saw literally like the day after they went and got Shaquille Leonard, who
Dude,
I mean,
it's not fair.
I mean,
No,
yeah,
he's
I mean
not-
after
he-
every loss,
since he changed
Yeah, he's
his
not
name,
good.
he's
I
no
know.
longer all pro.
And his back injury.
he hasn't even been. Yeah, I don't even think he really changes that. Like, I don't think he's that as big of an addition as people will make it out to be. But I think them losing Zach Cunningham for that game was
Yeah.
even more important because again, we saw how that linebacking core in general just fell apart during that San Francisco game. They just could not guard. They just could not tackle on screens. They could not guard the middle of the field. It was just a very like kind of like Desai zone was just picked apart all game long by Debo, Ayuk, Kittle. It was just it was a masterclass from San Francisco.
So now it's interesting to me because the 49ers blew out Dallas and everyone kind of dismissed Dallas. Now they blow out the Eagles. I'm interested to see how that makes people feel about Philly, but also how they feel about Dallas. And I think that's actually a good segue.
Yeah.
And I think it really raises the question, does Philadelphia get the treatment that Dallas does after they lose that game? Because Dallas went out after losing that game and they went and they beat New England by, what did they beat them by?
A lot.
45 points after?
35. It was something like that.
So who does Philadelphia have next week? I haven't looked at the schedule yet.
Dallas. It's for first place in the NFC East.
Wow, that's
Big
exciting.
game.
That's
Big game.
very exciting, actually. I didn't even know that.
Is that
But-
Sunday night? Is that
Yep, Sunday
they
night.
moved it, right? I
Yep,
forgot.
that's-
Sunday night for the
that's
for the
so
division
exciting.
lead. That's a great
That's
matchup,
so exciting.
especially
And-
considering
I
it's
think-
two MVP favorites.
Two
going
I
MVP
into
think
favorites,
Dylan,
and-
your point is totally correct. I think people totally dismissed Dallas
Mm-hmm.
after getting blown up by San Francisco, despite the strong start and the strong continuation after that they had. Where I think it's different is the Eagles were in the Super Bowl last year, and
Yeah.
they were. This is only their second loss of the year
Yeah.
in a really strong season, and I think people have kind of over the last few years. Dallas has always been at the top of the list to be Super Bowl contenders, and then they've always disappointed everybody. And I think that we just saw them disappoint everybody a little bit earlier in the season when they had their first game against a real contender. And so we chalked them off. But the Eagles, over the last couple of years, have not just been disappointing people, and they've actually been winning games when it matters. So the fact that they lose this one, I don't think people write them off in the same story that they wrote off Dallas.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's reasonable. Dak Prescott is now listed as one of the MVP favorites this season alongside Jalen Hurts. How do you think that factors into this game? Dak Prescott, does he have more to prove going in?
I think, well, I don't think, I mean, as a quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys, I mean, I think there's already every game, there's like so many storylines going into it. I think he's got to kind of like shut out all the noise about him right now. In my opinion, I think he's the MVP based on how he's performed so far. Because
as I hate to say it, I think so. Yeah.
I mean, like,
especially
he's been,
after what
like-
Jalen Hurts did this
It's
week.
respectable. I disagree. I mean, Lamar didn't play this week. I still think it's Lamar Jackson,
I
but
think,
it's.
I mean, statistically, Dak is just superior to Lamar this year in every way.
Dylan, it's weird because
I think-
Dylan,
it's just because of I feel like it's because of the name, honestly. Because when you think of Dak Prescott, you're meant to think overrated or choker.
I don't think he's overrated. I think he's been.
Well, but
phenomenal.
that's like the usual. But that's like the usual.
I mean,
opinion when people
we were absolutely destroying, verbally abusing Dak Prescott during the summer. Every in-person podcast, I think we talked terribly about, especially Charlie.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Charlie.
look, I'm the real victim of this.
Charlie's a little
I,
bit too quiet during this segment right now.
No,
I was just
I'm
sort of
with
waiting
Charlie,
for the
though. I
right
was with
chance
Charlie.
because I've said this on the podcast countless times. I do think that Dak Prescott is the most overrated quarterback in the NFL. That is what I have said. So this just kind of like hurts me a little bit because Dak is playing really, really well. And I know at the start of the season, I vividly remember us talking about, Dak said he wouldn't throw 10 picks this year. And we all said there's no way because Dak most years leads the league in interceptions.
I don't
Dak
think
has
it's even
6
most
picks
years.
right now. Well, he's never gone under 10 in his career. I know that. And he
Mhm.
led the league last year. And I think that's not the first time he's led the league. But he's got 6 picks right now. So it's looking like he is going to hit that 10 mark with a big game against the Eagles coming up. But this is, sort of damaging for me because as a Giants fan, I already don't like Dak Prescott. And then I'm probably one of the biggest Dak Prescott haters out there. Just in general, I don't think Dak Prescott is that good of a quarterback.
Me too. I'm with you.
But I think it's hard to make the argument that the offense around him carries him because, we look at offenses like the Dolphins and we look at offenses like the 49ers and the Eagles. Their weapons are far superior than those in Dallas. CeeDee Lamb is one of the best receivers in the NFL right now. Tony Pollard has been, I think, very underwhelming.
Yeah. 100%.
He's been good, but a lot of people were expecting him to make the jump, be one of the rushing leaders in the NFL.
Oh, he
hasn't been.
He should have been a
Yeah.
top 10 guy this year.
But other than realistically, other than CeeDee Lamb, they just haven't had much offensive firepower. And that means it's got to be coming from somewhere because they put up 30 plus points routinely. I mean, this is an offense that they score a lot of points. And actually, now that I say it, it's also a defense that scores a lot of points. I think Dallas possibly has the best defense in the NFL. At least in terms of production, scoring production, they score a lot of points. Darren Bland set the record with
Oh my
5
God,
pick
dude.
sixes.
Dallas just find these corners that can't cover but get picks. Darren
Look,
Bland was terrible against DK Metcalf. I could have covered DK Metcalf better, but then he gets like
we're not playing.
No,
this
six
game.
we're
feet.
not doing this
We're not playing this
again.
game.
Not
Yes, we are.
again. Not again. How many pass breakups did you
never-
have on 10 passes with DK Metcalf?
I still think that me and Hopkins. I still think give me 10. He's not getting all of
You
them.
still haven't clipped any of these you versus Hopkins things yet.
Oh yes, we have. We 100%
Oh,
have.
Oh, okay.
There were a
I
while.
don't
Dylan,
remember.
that was like 2 summers ago though.
Oh yeah. Oh, that
I
makes
still
it
believe
funnier.
it.
No,
I
that
still
was more.
believe it.
I think that was the Devin Singletary.
Yeah,
era,
no,
where
there
it
was that,
like-
and then there was I could destroy
Yeah,
Devin
Devin
Singletary.
Singletary.
I don't believe that anymore. I think Devin Singletary would severely injure me if I tried to tackle him.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
But let's go to Dallas though. Their offense it got better since last
Mhm.
season, and they lost their play caller and Kellen Moore. They replaced him with Brian Schottenheimer, and they made Mike McCarthy the play caller. So we've been crapping all over Mike McCarthy for the past 2.5 seasons. Me very much being a
Mhm.
prime member of that. Is it time to kind of take those words back? Because not that many
Oh
weapons
yeah,
on
no,
offense.
he's been great.
I'm sold on Dak as one of the best quarterbacks in football right now, but I don't think he's good enough to completely be elevating this offense into a top 5 offense in the league.
I mean,
And
what I will say, I think. Sorry, go ahead, finish.
no, that's pretty much all I had to say.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I mean, CD is the only elite weapon. I do like some of their other guys. I do like Jake Ferguson. He's been
Ferguson.
having a good year. I like.
Brandon Cooks
I
is
like
good.
Brandon Cooks. He's a solid weapon, and I think. I mean. But the problem is, like I said, I think last time I checked, like I don't think they have a receiver over like 400 or maybe like 450 now after the game against Seattle. But they haven't, so they don't really have outside of CD a really like another big time producer like we see with again San Francisco and Philadelphia. Yet, like you said, they're consistently scoring 30 points routinely. I think that's mainly to do with Dak. I think he's been someone that we've seen other like veteran quarterbacks like Aaron Rodgers really appreciate what he's doing at the line of scrimmage, the way he's approaching kind of the offense where he seems like where he says, yeah, here we go. And he's always like kind
That's
of
so
getting
funny.
he's always like kind of getting his team like I feel like he's always making the right pre-snap adjustments. He's been kind of, I think, one of the smartest, if not the smartest quarterback in the NFL this year, who at least who's been playing, who's been healthy. So I think
Dylan's back
because of that,
on
I think he's been actually the main. I think he's been the main like kind of elevator. He's the main reason why this offense has been so good. And I think the difference is I think Hurts and Purdy, and I like Jalen Hurts, but I don't think either of them have been the main. I think it's been more the weapons around them than the quarterback themselves. But I think Dak is elevating the offense more than those two other guys. So I would say he's the MVP.
I agree.
We're talking about MVP. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I have a kind of closing question. So go ahead.
I think that's I at the end of the day, I think that's really the difference with Dak this year. I think he has stepped up more as a leader, more as a playmaker, and it's more the offense. Not that it never didn't revolve around him, but I would agree where he had a lot of help, and I feel like this year he's shown I can still be elite, and I mean be elite than I have been my entire career without as much help. Yeah, it's funny how that works. It's funny how that works. But sorry, Dylan, back to you.
No. So, if nobody minds me closing this segment off, because I just have a closing question here. The MVP is a quarterback award, so a quarterback is going to win it. But if you had your choice, you can pick a quarterback of who is the most valuable player in football this season. Who would it be and why? And I'll start with you, Serge.
I think I'm still gonna say very close between Dak and McCaffrey. I'm still gonna say Dak because again, I think in terms of again, he has CD, who I think has been a top 3 receiver in the NFL this year. But outside of that, I think he's been the reason why the production for all these other guys have been why the production as the offense as a whole has been so great because he's been finding guys who are like solid weapons, but nothing like at the caliber of San Francisco and Philly and making their offense as good as teams like probably I think better statistically than the Eagles offense. And I don't know about San Francisco. I don't have the stats up right now, but they've been very comparable with both of those teams offensively, despite having less weapons. And I think again, the main thing to do that is that Dak has been just playing at an elite level. And I think again, a lot of NFL fans are conditioned to think that Dak Prescott cannot play at an elite NFL level, but that's what he's been doing all season. I think if you swapped his name out with, I don't know, Justin Herbert, let's just say, for example, he'd be the clear MVP. But I think Dak Prescott's the MVP.
All right,
I think
Charlie?
it's oh, never mind.
No, I'm sorry.
I think it's Tyreek Hill. I think he's gonna break the record.
I think he is too.
I think he's gonna break it. I think it'll be very close. I mean, it's like 2,000 yards is so hard. Like we don't get like, I mean, God, getting like 1,800 plus is so hard. I mean, you need to be having insane games, 100 plus games every game. I think he will do it. I don't know. I just think having a guy like that, I mean, really, like you put him, I think if you put him on like a fringe team like the Packers, it's like win every game. Like I really think he's the kind of guy where, yeah, usually it's quarterbacks who win games, right? Generally quarterbacks. But I really think Tyreek Hill could go onto a team with a mediocre mid-tier quarterback and be the guy that wins some games. I think that's the difference with him is he is so dangerous as a player. Jet sweep, can run the entire route tree, which is a lot of people don't talk about. Incredibly IQ fluid player, can kind of adapt to a lot. So I'd say Tyreek Hill.
So Dylan, you really liked that one, didn't you?
So I did like that one, and I'll let you go before I give my answer.
Okay, then I'm gonna say something you're not gonna really like.
Okay.
My MVP pick would also be Tyreek Hill.
Why would I
But-
not? Oh,
but-
I know what you're going for.
But
Okay.
because I think that, so we're looking at most valuable player. I'm gonna go out and say this. I don't think the Dolphins are a playoff team without Tyreek Hill.
That's insane. Respect.
I don't think
I'm
that's
not gonna
insane.
lie,
really
Charlie.
like
That's
the
not
Dolphins
even-
No.
That's
I
not even
really like
crazy.
the Dolphins
That's not
this
even
year
crazy.
because they have Tyreek Hill. Okay, this Dolphins team has Tyreek Hill, and that's I've been high on the Dolphins all year. You know that, Dylan.
Yep.
They have Tyreek Hill. If they didn't, this team is nowhere near as good.
So
Not
gonna-
only is Tyreek Hill going to go out and break the receiving record, but he also opens up the field for everybody else.
Yeah.
Tyreek Hill is the MVP, and the Dolphins would have half as many wins without him on the field.
So I see where you're going, and obviously I love Tyreek Hill. I'm actually going to give it to someone else, but I love Tyreek Hill. He's insanely good. But the argument that the Dolphins wouldn't win a lot of games without Tyreek is kind of benign to me because, I mean, I don't know how much people take EPA into effect. I don't really care all too much about EPA, but the Dolphins quarterback play has been the best in the league by a considerable margin with EPA without Tyreek on the field. And obviously, that's like, I want
it doesn't
Tyreek on the
matter.
field. But
That's like such a small sample size.
Yeah,
though. I don't know.
it's
no,
like how
it's
you
actually
go
not
off
that
of
small of a
that.
sample size. It has been because they take Tyreek out all the time because he's just running. He runs like a mile and a half of motion a game, but it's past that point. I think the Dolphins' offense is good enough without Tyreek. Like Jalen Waddle is phenomenal on his own. I think if he was the wide receiver one, it wouldn't be a struggling offense. Tua's a great
No.
quarterback. It wouldn't be a struggling offense. The defense is top 10 in the league. It would be a winning team. But the point does stay. Tyreek is the best offensive player in football, but I'm actually going to give it to defensive player. I think that Myles Garrett is the reason that the Browns have won 6 games this season, and he has 7.
No, it's just one player. Like, he's the best defensive player, but they have other pieces on their defense.
I don't
that would
hate it, Dylan.
keep their
It's-
defense competitive.
I don't hate it, Dylan. It's so hard to argue for defensive players.
I know what you're saying, but
I agree. I
think-
agree, but I like it. Like I don't disagree.
I think Myles Garrett is the best defensive player. This season of Myles Garrett has been the best season we've seen from a defensive player since like prime Richard Sherman. I don't think we've seen a season that's
JJ
that good,
Watt.
and he's playing at
And
a
also
level.
Jay
that-
Prime
Watt a
Richard.
couple years ago.
What's up?
JJ Watt,
Not this good.
Aaron Donald.
Aaron Donald longevity wise, sure, but like
But even individual
Aaron
season
Donald
wise.
Aaron Donald literally broke the sack record as a defensive tackle.
no, you know what? That's fair, but I just think Myles
His
Garrett
point
is-
stands.
it's not that I disagree with you,
Myles
Dylan.
Garrett's great. I just think best in like.
No,
But I
no,
think
no,
if we're
you're-
talking impact, not necessarily wins wise, Tyreek Hill's had a bigger impact on the Dolphins than Myles Garrett's got on the Browns.
I would
Yeah.
disagree with that. That's why. Like I think
It's,
Tyreek
it's
Hill's
so hard to measure that. That's the
Yeah,
problem.
no,
with
it's,
that.
it's
Yeah.
really difficult.
It's
But
like
I
all these
think-
people are just like, okay,
That's why
let's-
so often it goes to a quarterback because it's
because
impossible.
it's like, yeah.
Because like almost all the time they're the most valuable player on the field, so the best one will like.
Who was the last non-quarterback to win it?
Adrian Peterson, I think,
yeah.
is
Yeah.
2012. I want to say something
think
like
And that
that.
was when he
12.
broke every rushing record that was possible to break.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
Mhm.
Tyreek Hill's about to break every receiving record.
Which
I
puts him in-
think
which
he's going to
puts
score
him in
20
contention.
touchdowns and have 2,000 yards. So
With
like,
Tua as his quarterback, keep in mind.
Yeah, that's crazy.
with an MVP candidate at quarterback,
Nah.
everything
MVP
it does-
candidate's doing a lot of work.
Doing a
there.
lot.
Well,
Yeah, Dylan, that was a hard watch to see you say that.
MVP
Like,
candidate. I mean,
yeah, he's not.
he's fifth in the rankings right now. I would
Whenever
take him.
Tua comes up, there's an awkward silence that just like
because
kinda-
we don't want to say it, but
Yeah.
like we
whatever.
don't-
It's neither here nor there, but I agree. That'll end it out. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for watching. Thank you for listening. As always, Key McDermott, Charlie Nidell, Dylan Shalom, and Surge Kadali. Let us know what you think about any of the points down below. Follow us on Instagram, follow us on YouTube, or subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on TikTok. Thank you all so much for the viewership lately. It's been crazy. We're trying to get to 2,000 subscribers before the new year. We're 70 away and we just hit 1,900. So I think we can do it.
that.
I think we can do
Mhm.
it. So if you are new, thank you very much for watching.
Actually, all of us have to start lobbying. We all have to get people at our colleges. That's how we're
That
gonna-
also being said, oh yeah, Surge. If that happens, Surge,
Mhm.
it still stands that Surge will streak naked across the Michigan Stadium next year.
at
so-
the Rose Bowl also.
at
I'll
the
do it.
Rose Bowl. So
Yeah.
So it's interesting that we say this, and this is a great way to like stop the podcast. I am very capable of getting onto the UMass field without like it's
Oh
just
my
like
goodness.
it's so easy.
Oh, I could get onto the Syracuse field too.
Really? 'Cause
Yeah,
I feel like
you
they
just
would-
sit in the front row and then you jump the fence.
Oh no. I'm saying like not during a game. I'm saying
Oh.
like I could just walk.
Oh no,
into-
I can't get into the. I can't get into the.
I
dome.
can literally just
like, get
walk
them out
into
there.
the stadium at any time. I did it yesterday and I lost my
because
AirPods.
there are no gates.
I lost my AirPods. I think my AirPods are on the UMass football field right now.
Because there are no gates. Like I have to walk downstairs.
Dylan,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
guys
through
play
revolving
Georgia
doors,
next year.
like-
I know.
At
Is it
Georgia.
at
They're gonna
UMass?
lose by
We host
70.
Missouri next year. They're
Yeah,
coming
dude.
to us.
Oh my god.
I
Yeah.
haven't even looked at our schedule for next year.
Well,
But
ladies
anyway,
and
yeah.
gentlemen,
Well, you'll get to see Luther Burden in public. That'll be cool.
Like and subscribe.
yeah. Thank you all so much. See you next time.